a dew over the city this morning. The temperature also just seems to have dropped a little. Nonetheless, hopefully we'll be able to warm you up with some great conversations as we head up to midday. Coming up on the show today, we'll start off with what I know is your favorite. You don't even have to tell me. We know this. The numbers say so. The open line. So we'll be taking your calls shortly on your national roundtable. And of course, it is your opportunity to raise whatever matter of national interest that you want to put on the table. Lots that has happened and unfolded this week. I'm more than happy to take some of your reflections on the week that has been, right? And some of these things you need a day or two to sleep on it before you are able to fully make sense of the moment and even perhaps how you feel about what is happening or even your contribution to the national conversation. So overnight, of course, the news coming out of SADC about the fact that South Africa, Malawi and Tanzania, the three countries that had clubbed together in as far as the SADC peacekeeping mission to the DRC is concerned, that they would officially be calling it quits and that their mandate in the eastern DRC has been terminated. And as we understand, it will be a phased withdrawal of the troops attached to that particular SADC mission. Of course, SADC has still gone to express a commitment to working towards a ceasefire despite the withdrawal of the troops. And of course, it's also been a decision that has been largely welcomed, at least if you look at some of the voices locally around bringing the troops back home. You're looking at around 2,000 members. Excuse me. You're looking at 2,000 members of the South African National Defence Force that now have to be brought back home. A lot of the efforts are going to focus on the safe passage of the troops out of Goma, which we know has been captured by the M23 rebels, and it has led to many of the soldiers actually being trapped in their bases in different parts of eastern Goma. So this is absolutely still a developing story. And while it's being described as an acknowledgement of the failure of the mission, you know, that it didn't go as planned, that SADC failed, and this is perhaps the biggest acknowledgement of that failure. I think that the reality is that there have also been lives that have been lost in this moment, and I wonder what you believe. The lessons that leaders within the region need to be taking out of this moment, because the moment does present an opportunity for deep reflection on what could and should have been done differently. And it's probably what is owed to the families of those who lost their loved ones, who are fighting in this particular mission in the DRC, that they too can have a sense that their loved ones' deaths were not in vain. You can imagine being a family member of one of those soldiers this morning, the questions that they must be asking themselves about, well, why couldn't this decision have been made sooner? Why now? If it wasn't something that was worth seeing through, then why were our loved ones there in the first place? And yes, the decision has been welcomed, but I don't think that it must be allowed to be the end of it. There still very much needs to be clear answers about what really informed the thinking behind it, so that we can avoid finding ourselves in a situation like what we are in today. So I want to know from you, what are some of the reflections and lessons that you believe our leaders should be taking from this moment that will inform how they behave or the decisions that they are making when it comes to resolving conflict on the continent? Because right now, everybody seems to be singing from the same hymn book about how a diplomatic solution is needed to the conflict, and that it's a conflict that will be solved through dialogue and through negotiation. But that's what everybody's saying now. They weren't necessarily saying that before. And it is important for us to understand some of the decisions or some of what has informed the decisions around deployments in the first place, because we are facing some moments of instability. One just has to look at what happened in Mozambique, right? There will be more conflict. There will be a need to try and see what interventions may be possible in future. But how is this moment going to teach and inform and help make better decisions? That's the question I'd love you to answer on the open line this morning. Perhaps let's just reflect on what the President had to say about this decision.
SADC held its heads of state summit. It was a special summit, and this was to re-endorse the positions that were taken by the joint summit, which was also very historic, between the SADC and the East African Community, where we called for a ceasefire and the bringing to an end of that conflict in the Eastern DRC through diplomacy and negotiations. And our summit today reaffirmed that position, and the decision to finally withdraw from the Eastern DRC by the three troop contributing countries is also based on the fact that the ceasefire that we have sought to install in that place is now being embraced, and we are going to see a ceasefire eventuating and getting the negotiations underway under the leadership of President Lorenzo, assisted by a number of facilitators, and one amongst them being former President of Kenya, President Kenyatta.
Yeah, so we can reflect on that on the open line. The number to dial 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107. So coming up on the show today, the second hour of the show, we're going to be looking at the history of the Khoisan in South Africa. It's been triggered by a number of comments that some of our listeners have been making, questions they've been asking on the open line, and it's led to somewhat of a debate taking place. So we thought we'd actually just look at the history of the Khoisan in the country and help answer some of the questions, particularly with regard to the land. Who does the land belong to? When we talk about expropriation without compensation, who are the people that should be first in line effectively to be considered for that? And then the final hour of the show, it is the Friday wind down, and our guest for today, I tell you what, we started this hour on a positive note, but it's going to end on an even better note. How long did it take you to learn how to play guitar?
Not long, actually. I learned from a book, and then I continued on YouTube.
Wow! What are you going to play for us?
This one is called Badimo. I want to dedicate it to my dad. He used to be a regular listener and regular caller to SAFM. And there were times when, if they're discussing something and he doesn't call in, they'll say, "Where's Elias from Polokwane? Why isn't he calling in?" So this one is for you, Dad.
Hello everybody, this is Monet, and I will be hanging out with Cathy Mohlahlana this Friday, the 14th of March, on SAFM, discussing my career, growth, and my latest EP release. Don't forget to tune in Friday, 11 o'clock, 104 to 107 SAFM. Thank you.
Lontavera Disongojira verera Ontasera Disongojire kanya Ontanyera Jinondinga bapanya.
Over the last 50 years, one man has played an unparalleled part in transforming British society. This man is Rupert Murdoch. Feared by politicians, Murdoch has built the biggest media operation on the planet. His empire has given him extraordinary power and influence. The rise of the Murdoch family is an electrifying study of the Murdoch dynasty, charting the ups and downs of an empire. From the ambition that fueled its success, to the criminality that led to the closure of the News of the World and the Leveson Inquiry. This is The Rise of the Murdoch Family. Thursdays at 10 p.m. starts 13 February, only on S3.
Mzansi, it's raining jackpots this March. A storm of cash is coming your way with 53 million rand in total guaranteed Powerball and Daily Lotto jackpots this Friday. Don't miss out. Play Powerball for a guaranteed 52 million rand and Daily Lotto for a guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us. Because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, so we'll start in Cape Town this morning. Oh my gosh, in fact, all of the next three callers that we have are all in Cape Town. Doomsy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and thanks for taking my call.
Yes, Doomsy.
Yes, my comment is on the withdrawal of troops, SADC troops from DRC. I think it sends a wrong message, and I think it sets a wrong precedent as well, in that it sounds like it's an acknowledgement of defeat on one end, a whole regional force surrendering to rebels. I think it also sends a message that anyone can involve himself in a violent conflict to change political decisions. I think SADC should have. It's a good thing, perhaps, for South Africa as a country to withdraw the troops of the country. But when it comes to the region should have simply said we are enforcing our cohesive force by going to rescue the people who have been surrounded, so that it sends a message that SADC military is the sole or has got a monopoly of cohesive force in the region. But now what has happened is a whole region has surrendered its cohesive force to rebels supported by one country. And I think Kagame used his tactic to single out President Ramaphosa to see that he is conflicted with the view of weakening SADC's position, not necessarily that SADC was in a weak position. So I think because they say cohesive force can can only be good if it is used as a monopoly. As such, the monopoly for a country is the military and police. And for the region, it is the regional force. So there should never be another force that forces the regional body or regional army to retreat.
You know what, Dumzi? I think when I look at that statement that was issued by the SADC Secretariat, so point 6 for me is sort of part of the important bit, because it says that the summit noted with grave concern the continued deterioration of the security situation in the DRC, and including the capture of Goma and Bukavu and the blockage of the main routes, making it difficult for humanitarian aid to flow. And then from there on, it talks about how, there's a need for intervention, from the UN, and calls for support from other regional bodies. So I tend to agree with you in the sense that it seems that this really is, although it's not being explicitly said, but it is an acknowledgement of the failure of this particular mission in its efforts. And that's why there's a withdrawal, but at the same time, a recognition that says there is still some form of presence that is needed in the Eastern DRC.
Yes. I think if we are to look at the images that came prior to when the soldiers surrendered, the images were such that residents of Eastern DRC were being butchered. And now the security force was there to protect the residents. Now what that withdrawal means is that they are simply saying those residents should also pick up arms and fight their own battles. It sends a very wrong message.
But Dumzi, could they continue though? Could they continue with the knowledge of just how undercapacitated the force was? Remember that this has been a public conversation. So it's now no longer a secret just how under-resourced that mission has been.
Then they have to resource it further. I mean, it's like the police here in South Africa, if they are to be sent into a gang-infested neighborhood, and then they say, we are withdrawing because we are under-resourced. No, they come and fight with everything to protect this city. It's their fundamental duty. Once the government withdraws from that, for example, in that gang-infested area, once the government says, we are under-resourced, we can't risk our men being killed. What the government is saying, that gang has got a right to the monopoly of coercion.
Okay, Dumzi, you've started us off on an interesting point out in Cape Town. We are going to continue with the open line. The number to dial this morning, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. Let's take your latest headlines and then we'll continue with your national roundtable.
Good morning. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the European Union has committed to invest more than 90 billion rand in South Africa to strategic investment projects. The Northwest Department of Community Safety and Transport Management and its sister Department of Education have admitted to have violated the rights of many children to basic education. And traffic congestion is being experienced across the eThekwini municipality this morning. This follows disruptive and torrential downpours overnight. I'll have details on these and other stories at 10.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
The Red Bulls are searching for a special key to get to the top 4. Meanwhile, the Black and Yellows are navigating a path to enter the top half. This is the Bundesliga. Football as it's meant to be. Experience the spectacular battle of German football. RB Leipzig versus Borussia Dortmund. This Saturday, 15 March at 7:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
I'm Zycard. Catch me every Saturday from 7 to 9 p.m. on Spotlight as we bring you blow-by-blow sporting action, news. That's Spotlight every Saturday. You don't want to miss it.
Consumers must demand safe and high-quality foods, particularly food products. This year, on the 15th of March, we celebrate World Consumer Rights Day under the theme Empowering Consumers, Balancing Rights with Ethical Practices. We call on suppliers to prioritize ethical sourcing, responsible lending, transparent terms, unwavering commitment to consumer rights, and to meet food safety standards. Visit the ncc.org.za for more. We care about the consumer.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
We continue the conversation. It is your open line. The number to dial this morning, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107. So I'm going to stay in Cape Town. Then let me go to Steve Swartz. Of course, Steve, you are a member of Parliament. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to your listeners. And thank you for bringing this very important issue of the DRC withdrawal to our attention.
You, of course, want to weigh in on it?
Yes, indeed. I think there are a number of aspects here. As you know, I've been in Parliament for many, many years, and we do welcome the announcement of a staged withdrawal, but there must be a ceasefire. And, you know, I've said over so many years, speaking in the defence budget votes, we cannot expect our defence force to perform the mandates of peacekeeping, and in this case, peace enforcement, without the proper resources. And this was the main problem that resulted in what people have referred to as a humiliation. We did not have air support. We did not have air cover that we had previously, and our logistics was not in line. So we definitely were under-resourced there, and that has resulted in what many people have said is a humiliation. Obviously, as Christians, we are concerned about the civilians. We're very concerned about the loss of lives that has taken place. And again, our condolences to our own soldiers who lost their lives now. And correctly, Cathy, as you say, families will be saying, but why did we wait now for this to happen? But we are really trusting for a ceasefire. But what we as the ACDP have said in Parliament is there must be an inquiry. And I think you've alluded to that leaders must be held accountable for the decisions. And we think that there must be an inquiry into South Africa. Were our forces properly equipped there? Why wasn't there support which has helped in the past? And why were our forces under-resourced? And why is we only give 0.7% of GDP to the South African National Defence Force? And why is our Commander-in-Chief, President Ramaphosa, not ensuring that there are additional resources given to our defence force that will prevent loss of lives? We had the Battle of Gamburi years ago, and did we learn no lessons there? There was an inquiry then as well. Again, it gets down to resources. So we're busy with the budget. We sit in this morning with the Minister of Finances, and we've got to ensure that the National Defence Force that is called on for peacekeeping, and in this case, peace enforcement roles, is properly resourced. But at the end of the day, we are welcoming the fact that there will be a staged withdrawal. It will take some time. We need to pray for the protection of our troops there, and of course pray that those families that have lost loved ones will be comforted at this time when they say, but what was it all about? Why did our troops lose their lives? Why did our family members lose their lives? And now that we've been withdrawn, but we really trust in. And the minister last night in Parliament indicated that the United Nations will also now get involved. Another question that we need to interrogate is why did only 3 countries from all the countries in SADC commit forces? It was under-resourced. There's a lot of internal politics in SADC, and that also needs to be addressed. So it's quite a mouthful, Cathy, and I hope it's helpful to you.
No, look, I think your contribution is quite insightful. I just want to know, Steve, because now, as we're seeing, leaders in the region all emphasize a diplomatic solution, a negotiated solution. This has always been an option. It has always been on the table. But yet there was a decision to send a mission there. And one wonders, when it comes to the deployment of troops from a South African perspective, do we see it as the option of last resort? So are we at a point where we say we have fully exhausted all other available options on the table before the decisions are made around deployments?
Well, I do think that this situation that is being faced with at the moment, where our troops are basically surrounded in Saki and in Goma, has resulted in this, and of course the very speedy spread of the M23 rebels based by Rwanda has seen the need for peace talks, and for hopefully there's a tentative ceasefire that will hold. But the art of diplomacy, one always needs to remember, is an iron fist in a velvet glove. Now, sadly, we thought we had an iron fist, but it wasn't so. So when you negotiate, you've got to be able to negotiate from a strength. And this is now where forces, and remember, let's not forget that, as I said in Parliament, our troops fought like lions. There were almost 800 M23 soldiers or rebels that were killed by our forces in self-defense. So yes, we achieved a lot, but at the end of the day, it was a humiliating defeat, as we saw, and it took a long time for our soldiers to come back. I think that this was part, and remember, this isn't the first peace enforcement mission. We were there in 2013, in 2020, so it's been an ongoing issue. But the big issue that has been raised in Parliament is, what are the mineral interests in the Eastern Congo? And that is really where it's all about, is the mineral rights, the mineral interests. What countries is Rwanda is taking the minerals? There's a lot of interest there. So we're really trusting that this tentative ceasefire will be instilled, that there'll be direct talks between the president of the DRC and the M23 rebels, that there'll be a long-lasting peace. And hopefully they can follow South Africa's example with governments of national unity, even bring them on board. Let's have peace in the DRC, in the eastern DRC, and let's protect the civilians. We heard of the horrendous attack on a church where 70 Christians were beheaded. So there must be protection in place for the civilians, and I think your other callers will raise that issue as well.
Steve,
but we do trust that peace will be achieved.
Before I let you go, there is, of course, if you look at it through the lens of international relations and scholars in that regard, power in the global space is seen as finite, right? And South Africa has always sought to position itself as a hegemon, within the region or on the continent. Do you think we wake up today a little less stronger than we were yesterday?
Absolutely. This has been a massive wake-up call for South Africa to realize that if you do not properly resource your forces that are deployed, and I said it last year when we had the budget vote, I said, if you do not properly resource our troops, bring them home. The same applies to our troops in Mozambique and elsewhere. If you do not ensure that they are fully resourced, that they have air support, that they have combat logistics support, you've got to bring them home. Do not send them into situations. It's a massive wake-up call for us.
Okay.
And I think we have to have an investigation in Parliament, an inquiry, as has happened in the past, as to what happened and why were the additional resources not given. But Cathy, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to express my views.
No problem, Steve. Thanks for calling in. Steve Swart there. He's a member of Parliament and, of course, expressing his own views around how we have ended up here as a country. He says it's a massive wake-up call. And, when you look at it from the lens of international relations and, the positioning geopolitically, we are a bit bruised, right, as a country. This is a bit of a humbling moment. Ngonde, you're in Cape Town. Good morning. Good morning, Ngonde. All right, I'm not sure what's happening with that line there. Mlenze, you are in KZN. Good morning.
Morning, Kate. How are you?
I'll be better when you switch off your radio, Mlenze.
Yes, I know it's off now. Thank you very much.
Go for it. No problem.
Yes. Two things, Katie. I want to talk about the DRC matter that you've just opened with earlier on. I'm wondering, Cathy, why President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, we are not hearing his name as often as we are hearing the names of other presidents when they talk about Traore, when they talk about the DRC. Or maybe there is a bad blood between DRC or with the Burkina Faso. Because as I'm looking from a distance, I think we've got the best president currently now in Africa with that young man of the name of President Ibrahim Traore. When you hear the things that he's doing there in Burkina Faso, putting the people's first and channeling all the resources that need to be channeled in terms of developing the country and so forth and so forth, he's doing exactly that. With his experience and exposure in the army, I think he can be of a very good, useful material to be utilized in those discussions of trying to end the war, because he knows the battle line himself. On the last one, Cathy, I just want to, because I don't want this one to miss our community or our South African population and your viewers, with regards to the by-election that took place on Wednesday in KZN in Ward 2, Richmond, where MK Party claimed a landslide victory there. I think that needs to be discussed as well, and the people should need to know about that, because there has been a lot of saying that our MK Party is claiming that they've got a two-thirds majority, but they are losing by election left, right, center. Why else we know the dynamics of the by-election? But in this case, MK Party took it upon themselves that even though we know the dynamics of the by-elections, but they will go out there and ensure that the people who voted for them on the national government election last year, they galvanize them and then they come back and vote for them. Instead, they approached what they call a snowball tactics, so that those who are inside, they become happy and stay with us, and those who were outside last year, they become interested and vote in numbers for MK Party. I think we should look at that as well, Cathy, if you've got time, to say what does it mean now to the body politics of KZN in particular, since MK Party has claimed that landslide victory. Because you know that in Msunduzi, we have just lost a ward there. But we, as MK Party, we know what happened there, and people of KZN know very well what happened there, whereby there was a sponsored confusion within the MK Party, but it was sponsored by people from outside who are our detractors, want to see us not achieving our goals and vision. But now we were able to counter them.
Look, Mlenze, I'm sure, this is good news for the MK Party. But next year, we've got the municipal elections coming up. So the proof will be in the pudding, but the proof of the what is it? How does that saying go again? The proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So,
Yeah.
so the reality is that, of course, for political parties, it is these small signals that give an indication of what is happening in community. So I can understand why you, as a party, are excited about it, but I would say that the road is still long. It's a long road to the municipal elections, and how ultimately it will go in terms of the MK Party being able to claim the entire KZN.
No, you are good. You are correct. You are spot on, KB. But just to test us, make what 28 of Stenger, what the Wuza is coming. Just let us use that one as a barometer. I can bet with my last friend, Cathy, we're going to win that one with landslide again.
Okay.
What 28 in Watuwuza.
Yeah.
I'm going to call back when the by-election time comes to say, here are the results, Cathy, and this is what you are doing as a MK Party, in KZN in particular. But in actual sense, we are going to be doing this throughout the country.
All right.
But because I'm here in KZN, I'm just watching these developments developing here in front of me, unfolding in front of me in KZN.
All right, Mlenze, let's leave it there. Mlenze out in KZN. The tricky thing, of course, with by-elections is always, and I think this is for all political parties, is to get people out to go and vote. So ultimately, the parties that are able to get their supporters to actually participate in the election are often the ones that will do well. Kirk, you are out in Cape Town. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. The fact that more people from Cape Town phone, I don't know what the reason for that is, but we obviously love your station and your show.
Thank you, Kirk.
It's good to be on this morning. Cathy, my call this morning to you is regarding the budget speech, the budget deficit that we experience, as well as the many challenges we have in our society because of budget cutbacks. I did a quick, after the hearing the minister present the budget speech, I did a quick Google search to check what our national debt is versus the money that we have invested within the Government Employee Pension Fund. And by my rush calculation, we have a total debt of about 5.5 trillion rand, and we have money with the PIC manage around about 2.5 trillion rand, which means there is an opportunity. Yes, it is government employees' money, and all money in South Africa belongs to the government, and all debt belongs to the government, and all debt belongs to us as citizens. So my thought was, how about a suggestion of taking 20% of the PIC, 20% of the national debt of 5.5 trillion rand, and repaying it from the money that the PIC manages, and then the interest that we are paying in loans, we then repay to the PIC.
You know, Kirk, economist Duma Gobule has, I think, similar ideas, not exactly what you're saying, but similar ideas around how we should be using some of those surpluses that you've referenced. But he largely saying that money should actually be deployed back into the economy to fund projects that are going to help grow the economy, stimulate growth, whether it's infrastructure and other type of projects.
And Cathy, the only reason I'm saying this is we've had this budget deficit for years. Our economy is not growing at the pace that we need to sustain us going forward. And as a once-off measure, I think it's a really good thing to consider. Should we reduce the debt burden and use that money then to stimulate the economy, create jobs, assist industry as a holistic approach to our fiscal issues.
Yeah. Look, good luck getting the PIC to agree to that, right? And perhaps that's also part of the reason why it's not even up for consideration, that the administrators of those funds would probably not agree.
But they make money, Cathy. They make money off that money. So they are investing in like in the Steinhoffs, for example. Ironically. So they're using that money to make money. And if they can use that money to service our debt and still make money,
okay.
To me, it just makes sense. A bit of a tax shop mentality, a home budget mentality.
You don't say.
I'm extrapolating it to a national recipe.
All right, Kirk.
Have a good day.
Don't worry.
Bye.
We'll take your basic economics for this morning. Let's take a quick break. I'm back with more of your calls after this.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
The citizens are not willing to settle for anything less than a win.
And now it's with Haaland and on to Foden. Foden to finish the game. And he does.
However, the Seagulls want to triple their efforts to collect valuable points against reigning champs.
Lovely touch from Mitoma, and Mitoma could be away. Here it is. Mitoma one-on-one. Mitoma, delightful.
This is the Premier League. Witness the superb contest, Manchester City FC versus Brighton and Hove Albion FC on Saturday 15 March at 4:30 p.m. live on S3. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
I'm Michelle Constant. Join the JSB crew and I every Saturday and Sunday morning between 7 and 10 a.m. We promise to keep you informed and entertained with innovation, culture, cars, travel, life learnings, environment, and of course, your big fat juicy. Small stories, big ideas, massive inspiration. The Jet Set Breakfast on SAFM.
Nothing gets you going in the morning like your favorite cup of coffee, but lately that cup of joe is hitting your wallet hard. The cost of living keeps going up, but it's reassuring that Outsurance is still committed to ensuring their clients always get something out. Outsurance has paid out more than 6 billion rand in out bonuses. There's never been a better time to switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the Talking Point. It is your open line, your national round table. I'm taking your calls on 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line. You can send some of those voice notes on 0614 104 107. Godfrey, you're calling from Mbombela. Good morning.
Morning, how are you, Cathy?
Good, Godfrey, go for it.
I think the withdrawal of the troops by the SADC, it's a tactical withdrawal, having our troops being surrounded there, so they wouldn't want to sacrifice them if they continue with the offensive. Therefore, they need to withdraw them and for regrouping later. Knowing our people, that's what is there. It's just a tactical withdrawal.
Godfrey, the reality is that given the situation on the ground, there aren't very many other options, are there?
No, there's no option. It is the only option that they have to withdraw for now. And then when all our troops are safely back home, you will hear me, mark my words, they will regroup and say they are sending troops back again. Now they just want to make sure our troops are safe.
All right, Godfrey, thanks for that take out in Mbombela. Tando, you're in the Eastern Cape. You also want to talk about this issue.
Yeah, Terry. Just on the guy from Cape Town, we're also not far behind in the Eastern Cape. We do call in because we are
Absolutely.
So much
Cape Town, the Eastern Cape, KZN, Limpopo. You're at the top of the charts.
Yeah, why I weigh in for me is that they're not supposed to have been there in the first instance. Because we don't want a situation like what Mugabe did when he couldn't pay those guys who were guarding his mines in the DRC, came back and then gave him the land. And then all hell broke loose. Zimbabwe being from a bread basket, it went to be what it is now. You know, I actually stem from that. Now, the soldiers are needed here in South Africa. There's a war going on in the townships everywhere in South Africa, in the rural areas, stock thefts, killings, wanton killings. I mean, it's so rife. People, when they don't have, the taxis, they ban buses, they ban trains. We don't only need soldiers out there when it's COVID or when it's a pandemic. There's a war going on, insidious war is happening in South Africa. And everybody, these ivory tower leaders who live in golf estates and closet and secured places, it's like they're shocked every time to learn that this is what's going on. And it's documented that they get shocked. They are perplexed. Well, are these people really living like this? Can you imagine? Who are they leading? Because the only concern they have is G20 summit, is going to Davos, is to appease Trump, it's as if they are actually governing for themselves. It's not like they're in charge.
Tando, is what you're saying realistic? And is it also a reflection of how the world operates?
Cathy,
especially the position of countries, because, South Africa is not a pariah state. We have to be actively involved, yes, in what is happening within our borders, but we also have to rise up to our position and role globally.
Yeah, sure. Besides that, we punch beyond our weight. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but first, you got to put your house in order for you to accept, because South Africa it can explode anytime. Everybody comes to South Africa, they do their thing. It could be abalone, it could be poaching, it could be drugs, it's human trafficking, and all these people are undocumented. They come here, they do as they please. You can't go to their countries and do what they do, because they will execute you. That's the first thing. They won't even hold so many court cases. They will actually execute you right on the spot. So with us, it's like this democracy is, hey, laissez-faire, hey, everybody come, hey, have a field day, hey, nobody cares. No, this can't be. This really can't be. I mean, it's preposterous what is happening in South Africa. What about my kids and my kids and everybody else's kids? What is it going to be when we gone? Of course, it's happening in our lifetime for one thing, but now it only gets worse. That is the most disturbing part. There's no like a respite. There's no like a pushback. It's just these people just appear on TV making speeches, dressed in the nines, and they think they're working. No, I'm tired.
Okay, Tando, out in the Eastern Cape, he says, get your house in order first locally before we can be some big brother, to the region and claim our space globally. Yeah, I think the two have to happen simultaneously, right? There has to be a balance across all of those things that you've mentioned, Tando. Don, you are in Durban. Good morning.
Good morning, Cathy. I want to talk about the DRC very briefly. I know you haven't got time. There's the situation. The eastern part of the DRC has been neglected for decades by the DRC. It's so far away from their capital. It's a massive jungle in between. And that's the one thing. The other side is that Kigali and M23 are basically the same group. Well, they're not the same, but they're on the same side. So we sent troops in there without enough ammunition, with some amazing equipment, without logistics, and we were completely defeated. The only way those troops are going to come back is as prisoners of war with not a single weapon on them. The weapons are gold to the M23. They are not going to give it away. They are the victors. We must understand that. And for people from here to say, why don't we just fly in and go and get them? The fact is, the only way you can get heavy equipment in is with the approval of the Rwandan leader. And it's not going to happen.
So, Don, in your view, does this mean that Paul Kagame is now very much in charge of directing this phase of the conflict, which is about the safe passage of those that were part of the mission out of these captured areas?
You've said it in a nutshell. And our president must learn to humble himself when he's on the defeated end. His arrogant way of doubling down when people say things he doesn't like is not going to help. That applies to many things that South Africa is facing.
But what would humbling himself look like, Don? What position should South Africa have taken?
Well, in the first, I'm not a diplomat, so my way would be most probably not the diplomatic way. But when you are at the mercy of someone, you literally, I think it's about 2,000 soldiers. These people have got very little food. They are terrified. The women are terrified what may happen. This president should literally go on his knees and ask for forgiveness to get the people out. But his arrogant way of speaking, I listened to him yesterday when he was talking, on that press briefing with the EU. Oh, the people there, we must think of the humanitarian to help them. No, he should say our soldiers that we put there without the necessary stuff are prisoners, and we are asking to get it out. Instead of putting him in this flowery, whatever way Ramaphosa does to give him a bit of faith.
Look, I was going to say, it's also about saving face, right, Don? No president is ever going to come out and say we have been defeated. SADC is not going to come out and say we've been defeated.
Well, it's the cost of 2,000 men, then.
Okay.
Fine.
All right.
Okay.
Don
That's my
out
opinion.
in Durban. Thanks for your contribution to the conversation, Don. Yeah. It's time for your latest news update.
In our top stories, EU to invest 90 billion rand in South Africa investment projects, and US imposes more sanctions on Russia. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the European Union has committed to invest more than 90 billion rand in South Africa to strategic investment projects. The president hosted an EU delegation in Cape Town where a number of global issues were discussed. Ramaphosa also commended the EU for supporting Pretoria in its G20 presidency.
We welcome the announcement by the European Union of a global gateway investment package of some 4.7 billion euros amounting to 94 billion rand to assist strategic and to support strategic investment projects in our country. The investment package covers areas such as critical raw material processing, green hydrogen, renewable energy transport and digital infrastructure, local vaccine and pharmaceutical production, and the resources for skills development.
The Board of Airline Representatives of South Africa's chairperson, Bali Mabena, says a strong aviation industry has the potential to boost the country's economy. Mabena made the remarks during the aviation summit at Skukuza in the Kruger National Park. Various stakeholders, including those from the transport and aviation sectors, are part of the summit ahead of the G20 summit to be held later this year. Mabena elaborates.
As BASA, our role is mainly to collaborate with the Department of Transport. As you heard, the conference was opened by our own Minister, Barbara Creasy, and connecting cities, countries, it drives tourism, and hence later we will have the Minister of Tourism, Antipet. It is important that we collaborate with the regulators, which is your Civil Aviation Authority. It is important that we work together with BMA.
The Northwest Department of Community Safety and Transport Management and its sister Department of Education have admitted to have violated the rights of many children to basic education. They conceded they failed to provide adequate scholar transport. The South African Human Rights Commission concluded its 3-day probe into scholar transport challenges that infringe on the rights of many learners to basic education. The inquiry came after numerous complaints were reported about scholar transport across the province. The acting HOD of the Education Department, Prince Masilo, cited budget constraints as reasons for failure to provide more than 8,000 learners across the province with scholar transport.
I'm aware that we have submitted the request for these learners to be supported, and we've been promised that come the new financial year, they might come up with something.
Transport congestion is being experienced across the eThekwini municipality this morning. This follows disruptive and torrential downpours overnight. Rain is continuing in some areas while the sun is out in others. The body of a woman whose car washed away in Pinetown last night has been recovered this morning. SABC News reporter Nonjabulo Mtungwa Makamo brings us an update from Pinetown.
We've been told that various roads have been closed due to the damage that has been caused by the rainy weather conditions that we experienced yesterday. We've been told that various roads also all the way to Harris Smith on the N3 coming down here to Pinetown, Fields Hills. The various lanes have been closed to traffic. Recovery missions in other areas within the eThekwini municipality are still continuing.
And finally, the United States has increased restrictions on Russian access to U.S. payment systems for its energy and banking systems. This as negotiations continue about President Donald Trump's ceasefire proposal on Ukraine. It follows a response from the President Vladimir Putin, who said the idea of an end to hostilities was good, but raised questions about how it would work. The BBC's James Landale has the details.
2 days ago, the United States said the ball was in Russia's court. Today, Vladimir Putin knocked it back over the net. The US and Ukraine had agreed there should be an immediate ceasefire on all fronts in the conflict. President Putin's response was to say, in effect, yes, but no. Mr. Putin supports the idea but qualifies it. First, by saying any ceasefire must address his concerns about NATO expansion and his belief in Ukraine's supposed lack of sovereignty, what he claims are the root causes of the war.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the European Union has committed to invest more than 90 billion rand in South Africa to strategic investment projects. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
SAFM values your views. Be an active citizen.
On the 1st of July 2022, the President of the Republic of South Africa signed the National Forest Amendment Act 2022, Act number 1 of 2022, the Amendment Act into law. The President has now proclaimed the Amendment Act and determined its commencement date as the 4th of December 2024. The Minister has also published amendment regulations which seeks to give effect to certain sections of the Amendment Act. A copy of the proclamation notice and the amendment regulations can be accessed on the following websites: www.dff.gov.za/legislation/gazetted notices or www.gpwonline.gov.za. Any communication or media inquiries in connection with the publication can be directed to Mr. Peter Mbelengwa, Chief Director of Communication and Advocacy. The telephone number is 012-399-8842 or the cell phone number 082-611-8197 or email pmbelengwa@dffe.gov.za.
My name is Blade Nzimande, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation. No nation can hope to achieve its development goals without meaningful investment in science, technology and innovation. To enable this, we need a responsive and transformed national system of innovation. From the 13th to the 14th of March 2025, the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation will host the inaugural National System of Innovation Summit. The summit seeks to accelerate the transformation of our national system of innovation with the view of making it more responsive to our national priorities and developmental goals. The Department of Science, Technology and Innovation, making it possible.
Hi, I'm Khomotso KG Mweketi, and I believe in music's ability to connect, to heal, to remind, and to bring joy. And each week on my Saturday and Sunday show Seasons right here on SAFM, I endeavor to do just that. So join the movement of Seasons every Saturday and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's addictive. You might invite a friend. Seasons, only on SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide with me, KG Mweketi. Because where words fail, music speaks.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
It's 10 after 10 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the Friday edition of The Talking Point as we continue to lead conversations that move us. Coming up in this hour of the show, we reflect on the history of the Khoisan people and their recognition as the indigenous people of South Africa. I did say that what we have experienced is a number of callers since we sort of started the year in January calling in to question that position and to question that recognition. So we thought it would be a good idea to just go into our history books and try to find out and understand why it is that the Khoisan are even given this recognition in the first place. Before we get into it, your WhatsApp voice notes from the open line.
Hey, Sis Cathy. Sis Cathy, I have to say this has to be the best call you ever received in a while from our leaders. You know, the man from ACDP, Mr. Steve Swart. If I were to nominate someone right now and to put them in that position of Engi Matsara, I'll literally give him a go-ahead right now. Because these are people that we need in the forefront, people who understand the next person's pain, not the people who just care all by themselves. We need people who can think beyond themselves, put others first. And listening to that call, it really brings hope to us, I believe to many of the listeners. But thank you, Mr. Swart. Kwena.
Hello, Cathy. Good morning. You should have asked Lenzi why they are so focused on KZN. What about other provinces? Are they really a provincial party? That is the question I have. Because you'll find them for the most part, in KZN and in some regions in Gauteng. What about other provinces, your Eastern Cape, Western Cape, Limpopo, and other provinces? Why they don't appear there? Nkwali, Kuqumbu.
Morning, Oskezi. I've been asking myself, maybe all South Africans are asking themselves the same thing. Which department of government is working properly? Which one is advancing South Africans' lives? Which one? Just one department say, no problem, it's progressing.
Good morning, Cathy and SA listener. Cathy is still in Cape Town. Cathy, it shows you the withdrawing of a SADC mission, shows you that the region is not safe. If anything happens, we do not have any force to protect the region, the SADC region. It tells you how vulnerable we are. We are just like a lion who loses his tooth and cannot even fight. And if you look at South Africa's position now, it can be weakened so badly by exterior force, where people see in Central Africa it was disaster. Now in Congo, disaster. Everywhere is disaster. So I don't know what to say. We really need to put effort on building army in Africa. Thank you.
Hi, Cathy. Yes, it's me again, Flores from the Western Cape. The only question I have is, will the M23 rebels give back the weapons that they have seized from us? We need that back. We cannot come back empty-handed, because then it means that we have been defeated. Have a good show. Bye-bye.
Are we ready for a real conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Outsurance knows South Africans are feeling the pinch, so you've been looking for ways to save money. You could cut corners with things like that coffee brand you love. Or you could go the easy way, where you could save money on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Let's hear what real Outsurance clients have to say.
I saved 455 Rand. It was quick and easy.
I'm saving 411 Rand a month. Outsurance helping me save money.
That saving is actually saving my paycheck. Leave all the insurances and come to Outsurance.
It was fast, easy, and he gave me the best quote. My savings is 644 Rand. Come join Outsurance and save some money.
Make today the day you switch and save. And SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Bafana are taking on Lesotho at the new Pitamukaba Stadium on the 21st of March 2025 at 6 p.m. for the FIFA World Cup 2026 qualifier. Come early, dress to commemorate Human Rights Day and support Bafana for a chance to win prizes from our host, Limpopo Government and Polokwane Municipality. Gates open at 3 p.m. and tickets start from 70 Rand for adults with special rates available at 40 Rand for children under 12 at all Ticket Pro outlets. If you can't make it to Polokwane, catch the game live on SABC2 at 6 p.m. or visit sabcsport.com. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X and TikTok.
Cathy Mohlahlana on SAFM.
Well, let's get straight into our 10 o'clock conversation, then looking at the recognition of the Khoisan as being in the first indigenous people of South Africa. Joining us for this conversation is Zenzile Khoisan, who's a researcher and editor of the First People's newspaper. Zenzile, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy. And thank you for having us.
And Professor Magda Mingwizi is a professor of architecture and a researcher at the Institute for Coastal and Marine Research at the Nelson Mandela University. Prof, good morning to you.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity. Thank you very much.
When I think back, let's say, to the history that we were taught throughout our schooling years. Among the first lessons when we look at the history of the country is an introduction to the Khoisan. So when we started receiving calls from some of our listeners, and this was in light of the president signing the Expropriation Act, and it raises a conversation about, this expropriation of land, who is land being expropriated from and who would it be expropriated to? And there's a question then about who does the land in South Africa belong to? Who has a rightful claim to this land? So that perhaps is just to phrase or to contextualize how we have ended up with this conversation in the first place. So, Prof, let me perhaps give you the opportunity to go first. Speak to us about the Khoisan and their recognition as the indigenous people of South Africa.
Yes, thank you for the question. The Khoisan people are the first indigenous peoples of Southern Africa, and that is, a very well established reality, and the traces of the heritage are spread all over the country. And in fact, the work that we are doing at the School of Architecture of the Nelson Mandela, in a partnership with the leaders and community members of the San and Khoekhwena, is actually based on that, on documenting and visiting and exposing also the students of on this first-hand experience of heritage sites across South Africa. So the traces are all over. And but we must say that because of the history of segregation and land dispossession and spatial inequality that those people went through since the arrival of the settled colonists, of course, this relationship and all those sites became weaker and weaker, and also the knowledge that we have on those sites need to be in some way unveiled, because of course the colonial narration of or the narrative that has been put in place is that those sort of sites are not there, or they are not belonging to the First Nation. So there is lots of work that needs to be done in that sense, and lots of work actually has been done already. Especially is something that needs to be done in coordination and giving space and the platform to the First Nation to rewrite the narrative, because need to be a narrative that need to be inclusive. So for me, this is a crucial point on all this question on land, and we need to also remember, and this is also for me always a crucial point, that the colonists arrived here with a very different approach to land. The private property was not something that was part of the approach that the indigenous people, the First Nation of this country had. So, the delimitation of land, putting boundary in places, of course that stopped and the laws also that were emanated stopped completely, the indigenous people to move around freely and to access their resources, and which, as I said, is a completely different approach, because as Chief Tendile will also tell better than me, the approach to the land was completely different, and was like they saw themselves as custodians of the territory and resources, which is a very different point and approach to Mother Earth. So, yeah, to me it's a very interesting and complex topic, and it's and for me it's also sad to see that the first people of this country need to prove that they are actually the first people of this country.
And that's precisely part of why we're having this conversation, Prof. Zenzile, maybe your own perspective looking at the origins of the Khoisan and what it is that we as South Africans in 2025 need to know and acknowledge about these origins.
Well, thank you very much, Cathy. One of the big things I think is that we've had a distortion. Let me put it this way: you've had whole parts of the authentic, cohesive narrative of South Africa that's been lost, stolen, and strayed. What I say by that is that many people want to begin South African history in the middle. For instance, when we talk about the wars of resistance, the wars of liberation, and so forth, we want to start with the wars that were fought by King Moshoeshoe, King Shaka. We want to go to we want to bring up those histories, and that is the history that's up front and center. We are 14 days away from the 515th anniversary of the Battle of Goronaikwa, the most successful battle, anti-colonial battle fought on the African continent, fought on the 28th of February to the 1st of March, 1510. So we are now in 2025. That's 515 years. Very few people know that the first freedom fighters to rise in defense of this country were actually the Goronaikwa. And today, on the full moon, when the full moon rises tonight, the Goronaikwa and the Khoikhoi, from the Goronaikwa, the Khoikhoi, and the San peoples from across this country will claim one of the first places of dispossession, right near the Liesbeek River, which is where the first the first dispossession took place after colonization in 1652. So that victorious marching onto a place of anchorage to a right of return is already being done. And the president and the South African government didn't do that for us. That is us exercising our cultural agency, engaging a developer, and taking an entire precinct from which we will fight for the restoration, recognition, and restitution of our people. Now, when we're dealing with these edicts around appropriation of land, our notion of land, first of all, the Khoi and San indigenous view of land is not. It doesn't start at the northern western paradigm, which is ownership. It starts that you are bequeathed this by the Creator, and you are to be a good custodian and an exceptional steward of the land, because it is your responsibility to prepare this for the 7 generations into the future. In the case of the Khoi and the San, they were the first people to face the bludgeoning acts of colonization and dispossession, and that dispossession is not just in Cape Town. We, at this very center, we've put up a heritage precinct and a heritage center there, right at our gathering space. It's a massive gathering space. We put up a map that deals with the last several thousand years of South African history, and we can prove from the archaeological digs, from the actual physical and tangible and intangible heritage that obtains there, from Mapungwe all the way to the Richtersveld, all the way up to Giant's Castle, Kokstad, into the Free State, across Taberga, down to the Cape Shores, and all into the hinterland. There is a physical evidence of the Khoi and San people having been here. That being said, one of the big things that has happened is that when the new South Africa was authored at the Codesa talks, the father of Cecil Fleer, Abraham Stockenstorm Fleer, went to Cyril Ramaphosa and to Rolf Meyer and asked, can the Khoi and San be represented at the Codesa talks? They were rebuffed and they were told, it's not necessary to have you. In other words, right from the beginning, from the inception of the new South Africa, we were horse traded. And from there is a series of injustices that follow through from the earliest part of the colony up till the present time, because then we find, number one, you have a Land Restitution Act, the first one that's written, that says that the cutoff date for claiming is 1913, which by that time, most of the Khoi and San had already been dispossessed of their land. Number two, you find that all the colonial edicts, the Caledon laws, Ordinance 49, Ordinance 50, Ordinance 51, Ordinance 52, all are about, number one, the dispossession of the Khoi and San people. Secondly, the destruction of all their social and civic systems, their cultural enclaves, their social fabric, and the last part of that was before the Bushman's Relics Act of 1909 was the total destruction of their identity and their forced imposition of the term colored on Khoi and San descendants. And that is where we begin, because then from 1910, from the time when the Union of South Africa happens, the first thing that happens is the 1913 Land Act, and everybody wants to behave as if there was nothing before that. A simple thing like the pass laws. People want to talk about the pass laws that were imposed on our other brothers and sisters, but they don't want to talk about the fact that the first time pass laws were used were against the Khoi and the San, long before the actual pass law system was passed. They were used against the Khoi and the San already in the 1700s. Now, we have to correct the historical distortion of our national narrative. And without the correction of that narrative, we will never come to an honest discussion of how we reconnect people to the histories to which they have an absolute right, to lay claim.
All right. We're going to continue with this conversation shortly. It's 10:30, time for the latest news headlines.
Good morning. In the headlines, the South African Human Rights Commission says it intends to take legal action against the Northwest MEC of Education, Viola Mutsumi, over her failure to appear before the Commission. The Commission held hearings in Mahikeng regarding scholar transport challenges. President Cyril Ramaphosa says the European Union has committed to invest more than 90 billion rand in South Africa to strategic investment projects. The president hosted an EU delegation in Cape Town where a number of global issues were discussed. And the US Treasury Secretary has told the Trump administration was doing all it could to tackle inflation after another bruising day on Wall Street. A leading index, the S&P 500, has confirmed it's officially in correction after falling more than 10% over the past 4 weeks. Details on these and other stories at 11.
Taking a look at your markets this morning, the rand is currently trading at 18 rand 24 to the dollar, 23 rand 57 to the pound, and 19 rand 78 to the euro. Markets in Asia ended today's trading session mainly in the green. The JSE also green across the board during mid-morning trade. Markets in Europe are trading higher. Gold is trading at $2,985, platinum $995 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil is at $70.53 a barrel.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAFM.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
After what transpired in Loftus last month, the boys of Coach Rivero believe this is the perfect time for revenge against Masandawana. But the highly confident Brazilians want to double the Buccaneers' pain. As Mnyamangenkani versus Kabuyelo. This is a massive meeting of giants, the Betway Premiership. Witness Mzansi's beautiful game, Orlando Pirates versus Mamelodi Sundowns, on Sunday, 16 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3:30 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also, available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Day 15. Location undisclosed. Mood brave. Music Eye of the Tiger. Dear Diary, it's been 2 weeks of epic challenges against some of the most memorable and epic Survivor contestants. I have endured some harsh weather conditions, unbelievable drama, and these fire tokens have given me and the other contestants a second chance to stay in the game. Food. I feast on the defeat of my enemies. Vumi over there is busy planning and scheming, thinking that he can get me off the island. Never mind though. I will win this and take home $2 million. We're gonna be rich, Papa.
Rich Goopy Wanaponani, are you doing that thing again? Come and get your dinner, Mr. Fake Diary Sessions. We're now on Survivor. Oh, the world will fall.
Catch Survivor Season 40, Winners at War, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Starts 27 February on S3. Open up.
S3. The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday.
We continue the conversation on the talking point. We're looking at the recognition of the Khoisan as being the indigenous people of this land in the southern part of Africa. Zenzile Khoisan is a researcher and editor of the First People's newspaper, and Professor Magda Mingwizi is a professor of architecture and a researcher at the Institute for Coastal and Marine Research at the Nelson Mandela University. Professor Magda, Zenzile spoke about the CODESA talks, right, that led to what would be a democratic South Africa, and he highlights that there was an exclusion of the Khoisan in those talks. Yet, when we look at the symbols that represent our country, you have the coat of arms in South Africa, and that coat of arms, of course, is a figure there of Khoisan that it's a redrawing from a rock of from rock art, and that motto, of course, then translated to diverse people uniting. That is a symbol of democratic South Africa. It's almost oxymoronic, right? Because on the one hand, the Khoisan form such an important part of how we identify ourselves as a nation post-democracy. And yet, on the other hand, you have this cry of exclusion and not being part of perhaps what the fruit of democracy was supposed to yield, or even the benefit, what that was supposed to mean for them as a people.
Yeah, no, exactly. And but you know, Cathy, I think that there is when I'm saying that there is a lot of work that needs to be done, I'm referring to the colonial narrative that's still very much in place. We know that one of the strongest points that colonists put in place in all the countries, not just in Southern Africa, but everywhere, like in the south of the world, including, you know, America and Australia. One of the points was to impose themselves, impose the narrative also that the indigenous people were not anymore around because they were, you know, like not survived after the colonial arrived. So there is, and you know, and so the impression here is that really this sort of narrative still in some way in place and need to be dismantled strongly, and so, you know, these conversations that we are having now are, you know, very crucial to facilitate this process, and the work that Chief Zenzile and all the other chiefs that and paramount chief across the country are doing, which is an everyday work, is a sort of, I'm always saying that is a sort of peaceful fight for their rights. Is very important because, you know, it's towards the dismantling of that colonial narrative and building a more inclusive and realistic also and correct view in respect of what is the current South Africa. So I think that is is a very important aspect and point to be able to discuss and openly, you know, like speak about those topics.
I want to look at the issue of the dispossession of the Khoisan, because this dispossession didn't happen only at the hands of your European settlers. History also points us to the fact that the dispossession also happened at the hands of the Bantu, which is what would be described today as the black South African population. Help us understand that, Prof. Unpack that for me, and Zenzile, I'll also give you a chance to do the same.
Yeah, I would prefer that Chief Zenzile give the first answer to this question, if it's possible.
Sure.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Cathy. In the first instance, let me just talk about there is the notion that sometimes is put forward that when we say first indigenous people, it's an arrogant thing. It says you are better, superior, you predominate over others because of your narrative. That is a falsehood. The decision to use the term first indigenous peoples was taken collectively by indigenous peoples already when I was in exile. It was taken around year 1988 when indigenous peoples were meeting in various places, where it was the description of who were the first to take the most severe blows from what would have been the doctrine of discovery. The doctrine of discovery, permission was granted for foundational peoples to be bludgeoned, for their lands to be sacked, and for all their social and cultural and spiritual systems to be disintegrated and for them to be othered. In other words, there was permission granted for them to be denigrated to the point where they were relegated to a subhuman status. So when you say first indigenous people, it is not I'm first before you. It is we, like the Goronaikwa. It's a historical, incontrovertible fact that the first blows, the first dispossession in South Africa took place in Cape Town on the Goronaikwa lands. That cannot be disputed. The other thing about this is that the Khoi and San are an African peoples. That is the other. There's a narrow nationalist, cultural nationalist undercurrent that runs through contemporary South Africa, which wasn't there before. People like Prof. Sebukwe, when he was in court and he was asked, who are the coloureds? And Prof. Sebukwe corrected him and he said, the coloureds, they are Africans. Alex Loguma in 1967 at the ANC's Morogoro conference, he asked his own comrades, but when are we Africans? Because he was part of the African National Congress, but they still had not resolved that national question inside the ANC. And that is part of what we're dealing with even in the current situation. The fact is, yes, the Europeans were the major responsibility for the dispossession of our people. And there was also people traversing onto other people's territories. For instance, in KwaZulu-Natal, how is it that you cannot ever say that you cannot have a proper discussion about the Khoi or the San in KwaZulu-Natal? Because right up there above Escort, Giant's Castle, and all of those, their footprint is there that goes back thousands of years. If you go all along the Eastern Cape Coast, the fish traps, the klip kraler, and other people are now living in those lands. Now, there are people who wish us to have a discussion where we would come into conflict with each other. Now, you see, one of the big things is that we mustn't get caught into that trap. We must start with the fact is that we have a right to be an African people. And when they use in our coat of arms the term Ke Itara Ke, which means you say it's diverse people unite or diverse people you come together. You know, at our conference in 2001, one of the old elders told Jacob Zuma when he came to that conference as deputy president to listen to us. They told him that Ke Itara Ke, what you are talking about there, it actually means eenheid in ons de mekaar het, unity in our confusion. And that very much defines where we are as a country. The country hasn't resolved its original sin. Number one, who was first dispossessed. Number two, they try to move en passant through CODESA and create a further injustice with the 1913 cutoff date. And three, you have the Khoi and the San in the coat of arms, but their languages, the very language that you have in the coat of arms, is not recognized. The Khoi Kebab, any of the Namakubab, none of them are recognized as official languages in South Africa, and yet they are widely spoken. As Professor Magda, I traveled. I constantly go and sit with our people from the Kalahari to Kokstad to Karkums and in the Karoo, Karup. I spend a lot of time with our people, and one of the big things that we have here is that there is a cavalier dereliction on the part of the government when it comes to the cognition process. The Inklapo Commission, which recognized our Nguni brothers and sisters for their chieftainships or their claims to cognition, was very well resourced. The Commission on Khoi and San Matters is a completely unresourced institution that's incapable of dealing with the kind of research required for the verification of the claims of recognition. The other thing is that the land claims process in South Africa needs to be radically changed. And in order to do that, you need political will, because people who today are on land that historically the Khoi and the San have a plan. David Stearman and Klaas Stearman. David Stearman escaped from Robben Island twice, and yet the land, and he is one of the most celebrated of all the political prisoners on Robben Island. But when you go to the place where David Stearman came from, where even Xhosa warriors fought under his command against the British, there you will see that David Stearman's people are people of no property. They have no claim to the land because they are not even recognized in law as people who are the descendants of David Stearman, who have a claim to be called Khoi or San. And so there are a whole range of things that need to be done.
Thank you so much for that contribution. I think it has been really insightful, Zenzile. Magda, you know, he lays, I think, a context that really perhaps leads us into some of the contemporary challenges that the Khoisan are facing today, including in as far as it relates to issues of land rights, of how their culture, how their language is preserved. How do you think this should be informing the conversation that we are having as a country around land expropriation?
You see, for me, that I'm working, all the work that we have been doing with the San and the Khoi is really around the heritage, and mostly is a pre-colonial heritage, but also is a heritage that is more, that is, let's call it living heritage, because remember I've not been just documenting the fish traps that Chief Denzile was mentioning, both in the Eastern Cape, and now we've got like a project that is running also for the rest of the country in the Western Cape, together with the communities. But we've got also, a project that goes inland. So we have been working with community, for instance, in the together with also Chief Margaret Coetzee in Baviaanskloof, where there are several villages of First Nation people and Khoi Khoena that's still living and building their own dwellings with traditional techniques. And those are also villages that none documented and technologies that none really studied before us. And we received funds from the Oxford Brookes University and all those, materials that we, or let's say data that we have been collecting in coordination with the chief and the community members are going to be part of also an open source archive that can be also achieved internationally online are all things that are related to the work that we're doing in respect of the heritage. And to me, one aspect that I personally experienced along this year is that for the indigenous people to achieve the heritage sites is always a battle. And if they wanted to also go and visit caves, many times those caves, in many occasions, those caves are or shelters with pictograms, which are actually a form of communication. Pictograms, what we used to call like art, rock art, are actually form of communication. And messages that they left there for the people to understand, to read, and to interpret. They can't do it freely because they need to ask permissions, and many times those permissions are actually not given to them because of the fear of land expropriation. So there is really a huge work that needs to be done in that sense, and maybe like other country like Australia or even Canada that are more advantaged in this type of law, maybe they should be taken as examples, because in those countries people can go and visit, and they can still use those sites to express their own identity and the culture, and the indigenous people can go there and practice their own rituals, which is something that here can't actually happen. Just imagine that in 2017 we organized together with the School of Architecture that I'm part of, the students and colleagues at university, and the chief here in the Bay, 10 of them, and their community. We organized 2 days of practice in front of the ancient fish traps that are located here in Mandela Bay in Cape Recife, and was in 2017 the first time that they actually did such a ceremony there, and was the first time probably after centuries where the indigenous houses, the 4 indigenous houses present in the Bay, could meet there and practice really their culture. And currently, if you wanted to access that place, you need to pay a fee an entrance fee to access, when is a site that actually is along the coast, so is a place that everybody could have access. So, those are really like a daily life challenge that supposed to be solved, supposed to be not there, especially for the First Nation.
Okay.
And for the indigenous people.
I want to bring in some of our listeners who have been waiting to contribute to this conversation. Aisha, you're in Uppington. Good morning.
Morning, Cathy. Thank you for bringing this topic, because one of your listeners a couple of weeks ago almost made me have a heart attack. I'm sure he's the catalyst for this conversation. Cathy,
absolutely.
Let me give you our position. Let me introduce myself. Tenzile, this is first speaking. My name is Ms. Aisha Pinter. I was the personal assistant of David Kruiper of the Bushmen in the Southern Kalahari. He has since passed, and his successor, David Karisep, has also passed. Now, this is where we are. The Khoi and the San are the Aboriginal title holders of South Africa, firstly. Number 2, we never ceded our land to any settler or occupier. So we are the title holders of South Africa. Number 3, we never went into war with anybody or signed any agreements. The only agreement that was signed was between the Afrikaners and the British. So we still hold title. The South African government that's currently running our territories is an illegal entity according to international law because we never ceded our land, we were not consulted, we were not part of the negotiations. And lastly, we have requested more than a year ago for the state to get the United Nations Special Rapporteur, the United Nations National Representative, to hold a national conference for the Khoi and the San. Because these leaders that are negotiating with the state on our behalf are all illegal because none of them have mandates from their communities. And language. Our language, they must recognize the Khoi and the San as indigenous peoples, and our language must be an official language. And everything else will follow from that week-long conference that they arrange for us. Are you with me, Cathy?
Yeah, Aisha, I've heard you loud and clear. I'm going to leave it there with you for this morning, Aisha, because I think you've made your points very clearly so. Brato in the Eastern Cape, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Cathy, for taking my call. First of all, Cathy, what happened, what inspired us is that to recognize us as indigenous people of South Africa, we need to first start what conspired, what has brought us to this stage. Why are we here? The reason why we don't speak our language because we have been forced, brutally and shouted out, because if you don't have a language, you don't have identity. That's why we found our children and our youth today where they are, because they got no identity. And now, we are fighting a losing battle. Secondly, is that currently we have to apply for recognition as a Khoi community and as a chief. But my question is, none of the others who found them to be here have applied for the recognition. Not the Afrikaner who's been here, who settled here, not in Gundi brother who's been here in Africa. None other race or whatever you call them have applied for recognition. Why do we have to apply for recognition? We are here. It's not a matter of accepting us who we are, because we are here being first. And we accept our Gundi brothers and sisters because we live in peace. We live in a nomadic style in our ancestral. And we accept our personal brothers and sisters when you came from North Africa and East Africa here to settle you with the cows and cattle, to graze you like cattle here. That's why we call about Khoi go up. We said the word Ubuntu came from us. We were the first who embraced our brothers and sisters from Africa. And that's why they found them to be here. We first embraced the so-called Dutch, whoever is here. And still, we have to fight for a place in the sun. Why is it that we still have to fight for a place in the sun? Why you still have to go the long process to sit in front of a commission? Which is so, the equipment of the commission is so, you can't describe how it is. How is it possible for them to inquire the whole Africa? All we suppose we are 200 chiefs who want to be recognized, or 2,000. We're able to do it. They're not well resourced to do that. And are they well equipped to do that? That's my question.
Okay.
Thank
Brato
you.
in the Eastern Cape. Yeah, thank you so much for that contribution. Zenzile, there's so much that has come out of this conversation during this hour, and actually, I think retrospectively, of course, an hour just isn't enough to try and look into a matter of this nature. But where does this leave the Khoisan now in South Africa? This, as Brato was saying, that there's a push for recognition. There's huge cries around exclusion, around marginalization, and a lack of full appreciation for the Khoisan and the claim and the role that they have in this country.
Well, Act 3 was reversed by Parliament, Act 3 of 2019, which is the the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act. Okay, and now it was referred to Parliament. The people had to make input by the 28th of February on that matter. We'll see how Parliament does it. But to me, I'm often struck by the notion that I think it was Malcolm X or Stokely Carmichael who said during the height of the rise of the civil rights movement in the United States, where he said, "You can't ride to freedom on Pharaoh's chariot." And what that means, quite simply, is that if a piece of legislation isn't fit for the purpose for which it's created, it may lead you into a cul-de-sac. And that, the commission has sat now for 3 years. There's not one announcement of an approved application, which means that they are sitting with a conundrum. And the conundrum that they're sitting with is that they're trying to rectify a historical wrong with tools that are inadequate. So we need political will to first understand what the complexity of dispossession, cultural genocide, identity suppression, and all of that process has been about. But look on the bright side. If you come to Cape Town, if you come to a place called Riverlands, you will find that a national coalition, it's called the Western Cape First Nations Collective, but it had buy-in from all of our leadership across the country. And there you will find a massive wall, probably the biggest mural in South Africa, 9 feet high by 43 feet wide, which tells the story of our people in one cohesive. It's actually very beautiful, very visible.
Okay.
But inside that precinct, what we are doing there is actually taking our people through a process. While we're waiting for, you can wait forever, sometimes for Pharaoh.
All right.
But Pharaoh's not going to come and hear you. So you've got to do something by yourself. And so we exercise indigenous cultural agency, and we have secured a precinct in which we will rebuild our people. We are putting together the narrative there, and we are.
I'm so sorry to do this to you. Unfortunately, we're completely out of time. I'm late for news.
S3 and Lorna Maseko are adding flavor to your Wednesday evenings. Lorna invites you on a journey of discovering new ways of transforming South African pantry staples into delectable and budget-friendly meals. From reimagining traditional South African dishes to infusing global inspirations, Lorna's inventive recipes and seasoned cooking tips inspire creativity and will empower viewers to navigate the kitchen with savvy resourcefulness. Tune into Lorna's Pantry, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Mzansi, it's raining jackpots this March. A storm of cash is coming your way with 53 million rand in total guaranteed Powerball and Daily Lotto jackpots this Friday. Don't miss out. Play Powerball for a guaranteed 52 million rand and Daily Lotto for a guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
The top stories: state witness testifies in the Jocelyn trial and roads closed due to flooding in Durban. For SAFM News, I am Ondilambana, and a very good morning. The woman currently testifying in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping trial in the High Court sitting at Saldanha on the Cape West Coast has told the court that she overheard Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, telling her boyfriend that someone wants Jocelyn. Kelly's friend, Laurentia Lombard, who was accused number 4 in the matter and has now turned state witness, says a few moments later she saw Smith leaving the house with Jocelyn to meet up with a woman in a white car not far from where she stays. Lombard says the woman, whom she has described as having features of a sangoma, handed something to Kelly, which she put in her pants. Kelly Smith, her boyfriend Jacqueline Apollos and Stefano Van Rijn are on trial on charges of kidnapping and trafficking in relation to the disappearance of Jocelyn in February last year. The South African Human Rights Commission says it intends to take legal action against MEC of Education Viola Mutsumi over her failure to appear before the Commission. The Commission has been holding hearings in Mahikeng regarding scholar transport challenges. There have been numerous complaints regarding scholar transport challenges that led to about 8,000 learners who depend on it not being able to reach school or getting to school late. Though the MEC was expected to present yesterday, the department's presentation was done by the acting HOD of the department. Chairperson of the SAHRC hearings, Nomahlubi Kwinana, elaborates.
So is there proof of why it was imperative for her to travel to Italy when one has regard to a right that is being violated in the country, where other people would even say, the province is burning, and we have the head of the executive who's out of the country without proper explanation to a Chapter 9 institution that deals with human rights.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says the European Union has committed to invest more than 90 billion rand in South Africa to strategic investment projects. The president hosted an EU delegation in Cape Town where a number of global issues were discussed. Ramaphosa also commended the EU for supporting Pretoria in its G20 presidency.
The investment package covers areas such as critical raw material processing, green hydrogen, renewable energy transport and digital infrastructure, local vaccine and pharmaceutical production, and the resources for skills development.
Several roads have been closed to traffic in Pinetown in the west of Durban. This is due to flooding following last night's heavy rains. Areas in the upper highway of the city, such as Kloof and Hillcrest, are among those that have been severely affected. This morning, the body of a woman who went missing after her car was washed away in a river in Pinetown has been recovered. These motorists in Pinetown speak to their frustration forced to navigate alternative routes.
The traffic's been terrible. Last night, I think we were stuck for over between Mshlanga and home, probably about an hour and a half. This is what we have to deal with. We're hoping that the agencies can try and help clean up the roads so everyone can get to work safe.
We've been affected even by my house. There's a big hole.
That's always the case. That's always the case. They start work, then they stop. And you can see I'm sitting for the past 50 minutes now in traffic. I'm trying to get from Mshlanga to work. And this is absolutely ridiculous. Where we're just finding our way, we're trying to use alternate means. And that's all we can do. There's nothing else.
The U.S. Treasury Secretary has said the Trump administration was doing all it could to tackle inflation after another bruising day on Wall Street. A leading index, the S&P 500, has confirmed it's officially in correction after falling more than 10% over the past 4 weeks. The BBC's Erin Delmore has the details.
This comes after 3 weeks of declines, an especially brutal week this week as we've seen the global trade war booming and really causing a lot of uncertainty, seeing markets respond negatively. So today we are seeing the Dow on track for its worst week since 2022, the S&P officially entering and even closing in correction territory. Even the Nasdaq is down today, and that's where we'd seen a bright spot earlier this week with investors rushing in to buy tech stocks at their lower price point, buoying that end of the market. But today, just a bruising day on Wall Street.
Recapping the top story, the woman currently testifying in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping trial in the High Court sitting at Saldanha on the Cape West Coast has told the court that she overheard Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, telling her boyfriend that someone wants Jocelyn. I am Mondilambana for SFM News Headlines at 11:30.
SAFM. Prime time all day long.
We've upgraded. Our new GIS-linked national address database lets us connect with you better than ever before. By visualizing licensed and unlicensed households nationwide, we can ensure timely communication. Our payment reminders are a crucial tool to help you stay compliant and avoid penalties, empowering you to take proactive steps. Efficient electronic communication helps us collect fees seamlessly, bolstering the SABC's mandate in line with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
Mzansi, it's raining jackpots this March. A storm of cash is coming your way with 53 million rand in total guaranteed Powerball and Daily Lotto jackpots this Friday. Don't miss out. Play Powerball for a guaranteed 52 million rand and Daily Lotto for a guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120*7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. E2 is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
The Talking Point with Cathy Mohlahlana. Weekdays, 9 a.m. till midday. The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
Sana onirindira fuani nishume Zembelo kwewa timuyo ata oporoni ano Duvalotara sana onirindira fuani nishume Zembelo kwewa timuyo ata oporoni ano Chara sani makuru ufumandi ufumabunda wo wo oporo ketwa diamane wo awe Chara sani makuru ufumandi ufumabunda Fuma buta, makuru fuma ndivo, makuru batiba zote, makuru fuma buta, makuru fuma ndivo, makuru batiba zote, oketwa dia marumini aya Tacharasa ni makuru Ofumandi Kuru mukuma muksami Makuru badiba Zote Poporo oketwa dia marumini Tacharasa ni makuru Ofumandi
You've just heard Makulu by Munei, who is our guest on the Friday Wind Down today. Munei, good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
You know, listening to Makulu, it's one of those songs that just makes you want to get up and move to the tune, you know, not in an amapiano kind of way, but just in its own rhythmic context, music that is just so alive and full of possibility, energizing, really.
That's really exciting. I think, listening to it now, because I haven't really played this particular song in a while, I was just like, oh, okay. It's very early, but I'm ready to dance. Like you said, maybe not in an amapiano way, but yeah, ready to dance this morning, yeah.
Let's talk about your musical journey, Munei, the last couple of years. How would you describe them? Of course, from the outside looking in, it looks like you've just had quite a phenomenal time of growth, of being able to really solidify your position, not only in the industry, but I think in how you express yourself as an artist too.
Oh, it's quite interesting. I think, firstly, only now do I start to see the progress I'm making, because outside of what people see, whether it's industry colleagues or it's the fans and the supporters of the music, you obviously as an individual have your own goals. You want to achieve certain things within a certain time frame. But the period between 2019, when I put out my first single, and now, it felt really steady. I think I'd be lying if I said it was more tumultuous than it has been steady. And I say steady because I don't know if this is a good thing, but I hadn't really set the bar too high for myself. Mostly because I'm a realistic person. I understand there's so many challenges, but at first, there was so much anxiety after putting out the first single and the second single. And then, with the pandemic happening, just feeling like the progress that I have made will all be in vain. But then sort of like seeing the steady progress, even when I've sort of changed themes as I've gone. But it's felt like it has been really steady. Steady is at the core and at the center of what this journey has felt like. There are obviously challenges. Yeah.
Speak to me about this idea of not setting expectations or setting the bar too high and being realistic. What exactly does that entail for a young artist like yourself?
I think firstly, I'm able to focus on the first thing. I have this thing that I learned when I was in my late teens, and it's called first things first, and it's why do I do what I do? Firstly, I do it for expression, to express myself as an individual in society, and I think we all express ourselves in our own different way. And secondly, I do it as a way to preserve my language, to preserve my culture and traditions. So by setting the bar not too high, I mean, I have these two goals, which are one, to express myself, and second, to preserve and to archive. The bar being too high might be maybe to be heard by 100 million people in society, or to win all the awards that exist. So I really just wanted to make sure that there is an avenue that exists for me to do the things that are primarily important to me, so that also I don't break my own heart. Because if I break my own heart, then I won't be in a position where I can, one, express myself or do the work that I've set out to do to archive the language and the culture. So, yeah.
Yeah, one gets the impression, Monet, that there's a great deal of work and effort that you have been putting into your live performances and into stage work. Just towards the end of last year, you, of course, headlining at the Market Theatre with Sigelela. When you think about that part of the work that you do as an artist, and a lot of reviews, of course, say you're one of those people that people should watch live if they're to truly fully appreciate just the gift that you have and the experience that you can take audiences through. Has that been something you've been doing intentionally, or did you just find yourself there?
It's always been intentional. And I think it stems more from my character than it is like a work ethic thing. You know, I think I always want to do things to the best of my ability, because for some people that will be the only encounter they have of you. But also as a way to honor myself, I always say to people that if I put together a show and I'm hoping to receive 100 guests and only 10 come, I'm still going to show up for the show as if it's a full house. And that takes a lot of preparation. It takes a lot of practice. And just going through the work over and over and over again. And I try as much as I can, whether I'm playing a gig or I'm not playing a gig, to just constantly practice my craft and remaining in love with the work. Because I think for people who maybe don't make music, they think that you always want to sing the songs. Of course, you wrote them. And sometimes when you're in a different season, songs that were written in another season might not resonate. But these are songs that the audiences love and they resonate with them in whatever season. So being in constant relationship with the work and constantly practicing and engaging it not only keeps me in love with the work and the music, but it also opens new avenues, you know, in my head, where I'm like, oh, I'm encountering this song differently. This is a song maybe about heartbreak. I'm not feeling heartbroken right now, but it has opened room for compassion. I'm feeling more compassionate maybe towards those who might be going through heartbreak. So it's definitely, it is intentional, but more from who I am, in that I always want to do everything with excellence.
What do you enjoy the most about being on stage?
The freedom. I really sort of let go. There isn't much on my mind, and I think the more I'm on stage, the less I think about a lot. Also because now I'm prepared. I'm not really thinking about the chords or the notes. That's already been done, you know, in the rehearsal space. But also the energy that you feel from the people. It's almost tangible. You can tell that there's this presence, that there's this wanting to be here, there's this grounding in the room, and it's a beautiful experience. It feels like sharing a meal with people you love, you know, where you both are, or all of you at a table are enjoying this meal, and you're all complimenting the dish. Oh, the potatoes are really delicious. Oh, have you tried the beef? No, I haven't tried it. Try it. It feels like we're communing together in such a beautiful space. So it's beautiful and exhausting as well.
I can imagine. Exhausting keeps you fit, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. 10 minutes in, I'm sweating, but it's all worth it. Yeah.
We're going to continue the conversation with Monet, our Friday wind-down guest for today. And, of course, I'll also be bringing you more of his music.
South Africa's domestic 50-over cricket competition, the One Day Cup, hits fever pitch this week with the final set for Sunday 16 March at Bolland Park in Paarl. Gold Rush Bolland has finished the top of the log and secured a home final. They will take on the winner of the qualifier match between the Hollywood Bets Dolphins and Momentum Multiply Titans. Gather your family and friends, Rosa Nawe, and be part of the action. Get your tickets at cricket.co.za.
This Human Rights Month, SAFM is deepening a culture of social justice and human rights. It's a time to reflect, engage, and take action for a more just society. From thought-provoking discussions to powerful stories, SAFM is leading the conversations that move us because your voice matters, your rights matter, and together we shape a better future. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
Hola, por favor verifique o prego de 6 a Dosham, 6 Mohlahlana para mim.
Oba oiteani, muselengwa tuwa, mutu achivuwa, aranganga usia, ananga lengwe sia, nandi. Fera ni monandi, matuzi mangapa ni fiwanyina. Zia karakat, ditenina. Today banane uri zochinyarangapi. Nidobuyana pora, nidobuyana bakwine. Na uniangwa na niangwa, nidoni angwera pete zozwino. Ditenina, dicheru kwa ngapi oh. Dijitisani basineri, dile kundani non siendi ndote oh. E agora estou aqui a chorar e a sentir tua falta. Não estás aqui, respirar sem mim. Tu me deixaste, me abandonaste.
Munei, I don't know. You're singing in Ichivenda, but for whatever reason, it is sounding so different. It is sounding so sexy. It is sounding like another language, not the language I'm used to, that I hear often when I'm home in Limpopo. Talk to me around why you go this route. And I'm sure I'm not the first one to say this, or at least I hope I'm not the first person to say this.
Yes. I mean, with this particular song, towards the end, there is a bit of Portuguese. But with this particular song, it's an ode to someone I really loved a lot who sadly passed away last year on the 7th of June. And we used to travel to Mozambique a lot together. And, you know, they speak Portuguese. They're a former Portuguese colony. And in the beginning of the song, that's sort of his voice speaking. And I know his father is listening right now. And in the voice note, he was asking me to bring some Mozambican beverages for his father. And when I was writing this song, I collaborated with Julio, who's the guitarist on Freshly Ground. And I was just trying to emulate a sonic world that could like represent the world that we used to live in when we would be escaping from the big city of Johannesburg and Pretoria to just be away in Maputo, in Mozambique, or in Ponta Douro. And it's just this song that's, the sonic is more, I guess, Portuguese. I think that's where, the difference comes in when you're like, okay, I hear that this person is singing in a language I know, but I can't exactly locate it. So the sound is quite more Portuguese leaning, and it's just this song about longing and me saying, hey, now that you're gone, what do you want me to do? I feel abandoned. But more than anything, it's just in honor of the trips we used to take as as friends, and yeah.
Oh, Monet, I'm so sorry for your loss. Uh, but what an absolutely beautiful song to come out of that and to memorialize your friend. Absolutely beautiful. Mm-hmm. We'll continue the conversation with Monet in a moment. It's 11:30. Time for your latest news headlines.
Thank you, Cathy. In the news headlines, malls in the west of Durban have also borne the brunt of the destructive overnight rains. At least one person is confirmed to have died when her car washed away in Pinetown last night. The woman currently testifying in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping trial in the High Court sitting in Saldanha on the Cape West Coast has told the court that she overheard Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, telling her boyfriend that someone wants Jocelyn. An investigation has uncovered details of a mass killing allegedly carried out by rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo last month. According to testimony, between 17 and 22 people were killed by members of the M23 rebels in the eastern city of Goma. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
And then, how? SK, where are you going with that stuff?
My dog. I'm going whale watching. New hobby, you see. Finally going out to explore the world. Giri levels, Dwana.
I see the life jacket, but I don't know how an inflatable boat, megaphone, and a fishing rod fits into all of this.
How else am I going to get to the whales, Bongs? I need the boat. The megaphone is to do my whale calls, and the fishing rod, it's called ambience. Ambience. If you don't get it, forget about it.
Okay, but SK, you know there aren't any whales here in Germiston Lake.
Ooh, Shem, Mr. Know-it-all. Whales live in the water, and Germiston Lake has water.
Hey, sure, Ntwana, go whale watching in Germiston Lake. Me, I'll tune into Whale with Steve Buckshall, Sundays at 5 p.m. only on S3.
First touch ladies have a tough assignment to demonstrate the importance of a good first touch. Meanwhile, TS Galaxy Queens refuse to settle for anything less than 3 points. This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch the thrilling battle between First Touch ladies and TS Galaxy Queens on Saturday, 15 March at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game. Copperbelt ladies and Durban ladies both want to collect maximum points in the early days of the season. Who will dominate this 90 minutes? Limpopo or KZN? This is the Hollywood Bet Super League. Catch Mzansi Queens of the beautiful game. Copperbelt ladies versus Durban ladies on Saturday, 15 March at 11:30 a.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
From the 10th to the 16th of March 2025, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, SANBI, is hosting its first National Gardens Week. Visitors can enjoy free entry to all national botanical and zoological gardens across South Africa, including Kirstenbosch National Botanical Garden and the Pretoria Zoo. This year's theme, Grow Your Joy, invites visitors to embrace nature, wellness, and community by taking a peaceful walk, joining a guided tour, or learning about conservation in some of the country's most breathtaking green spaces. Nature has never been this open to all. Celebrate, protect, and enjoy biodiversity wealth. Visit www.sanbi.org.za.
The Friday Wind Down. Kick off your weekend the right way.
Sorry for letting you down. I'm
soaring up to the skies. I'm falling. Will you catch me now and take me to the carnival? Could be better than this merry-go-round. Should be better than this feeling of grief. Should be better than this merry-go-round. Mangingaphazanyiswa njengasekuqaleni, angifuni wenza nencane impazamo njengasekuqaleni. Ngibeka wena phambili, uhlala wena wesobukhosi isihlalo, ukulandela ukulandela ukulandela. Akubuyi nalutho, akubuyi nalutho, kuze ukwazi ukuthanda nokwamukela ukuthanda, kuzomele uzixolele. Ulandelela akubuyi nalutho, uhambo lukhathaza umoya, kusukwazi ukuthanda nokwamukela ukuthandwa, sixolele. Ulandelela akubuyi nalutho, uhambo lukhathaza umoya, kusukwazi ukuthanda nokwamukela ukuthandwa, sixolele. Ulandelela akubuyi nalutho, uhambo lukhathaza umoya, kusukwazi ukuthanda nokwamukela ukuthandwa, sixolele.
These are the beautiful tunes. Apologies, beautiful tunes by Munei off of his new EP. Munei, your music is so soothing. I mean, that particular song also quite nostalgic in how you've put it together. I wondered, have you decided which genre of music you actually fit into? Which box must we put on you, Munei, or should we not box you? Should we not label you?
I think it's funny because sometimes it sounds so cliche to say, no, I don't fit into any box. But, I think about it a lot because, the first song we played is very traditional, folk, sort of like, you hear that and you think, oh, home, Whereas the second song took us to Portugal, and I don't know where to place this one, but I think my expression comes through in different ways, and sometimes that can be different genres. I think between 2023 and now, like I've been sharing a lot of what feels somewhat singer-songwriter, indie folk. I think that's what they call it. So, it's like bonfire, sit around, in a circle type music. But I don't know. Because my next project is going to be
very
different. Yeah.
also very jazzy, Monet. I'm surprised you didn't talk
Yes.
about jazz at all.
Yes, I was going to say that like my next project, my next full project, that I'm going to put out is going to be heavily jazz influenced, and even from the collaborators, these are like prominent names in the jazz spaces. So I think it's mostly also it's exciting, right? Because I have access now. It's not like in the beginning where I started. I have access to try out different things. So if I'm making dance music with Omagota or making a jazz tune with Robin Fassi, I have access to go back to the first thing, like I said, first things first, expression. So I'll always express myself in whatever way. And it does have implications. For some people, it's like, oh, you're not consistent in this genre. You've built a fan base here, but now you're making this. And I'm just like, it's okay. If people are here for my expression, they'll stay. Yeah.
I want to read some of the messages that have come through for you.
Mhm.
Claire out in Cape Town says, "Good morning, Cathy.
Yes.
I'm sold. I am officially a fan." Another message coming through from Cape Town is from G-Man, who says, "Please ask your guest where and when can we expect to see him in Cape Town. I'm hearing this man for the first time, and wow, I'm
Wow.
absolutely blown away." Another
Wow.
message that has come through is from Lizo and Bongisi Wisa. I think these are people you may know. Cathy, what an amazing artist you have as a guest. We had the pleasure of listening to Monet when he performed at the Queertopia concerts that were
Yes.
organized by our daughter Kifilwe and her partner
Yes.
Andy, and they say it's always a pleasure to
Mhm.
listen to the program. Yeah, so so it's lots of love for you, Monet. People really
Yes.
appreciating your music. Do you find that
Mm.
as a performing artist and sort of how you identify yourself, the genre of music that you're playing, do you find that there is a pressure to pick a box? Because I know, if people are putting up shows, like then they expect you to see you at the jazz festivals, or must we expect to see you at whatever festivals? Does it determine where you end up performing?
Ooh, this is, yeah, no, you probably don't think this, but this is very controversial. I don't think the quality control is set up in such a way, but this is not to say there isn't any quality control. There are spaces, I think, spaces like maybe the jazz festivals. I think there are spaces that really care for the curational aspect of their events, where they're like, okay, we've built this thing and it's been around for 18 years or 21 years, and it's a legacy project for us. So we want to continue, and we want to put on people that we believe are adding to the voices, to the existing voices. We want to add on maybe the younger voices that are coming up, like myself. But also there are spaces where one will want to be a part of, and you feel strongly in your heart that, oh, this is a space that I should be participating in. But then usually there might be focused maybe on an artist that might be pulling in a larger group of people, or has a larger following, which might not be the case for me. So it's not always as clear as, oh, we see what Monet is doing, we're celebrating him, and he's a young voice that's on the come up. Let's place him here. Let's place him here. Some spaces are like that, but it's not always the case. But I am grateful that the spaces that are like that have really, honestly, even more than once, sort of reached out and have given me a platform. Like, Queertopia was mentioned. I think I've played Kwiatopia more than anyone, any other booked artist. And it's such an honor also to be seen and to be called back. And I think spaces should have that as well, to say, hey, we love what you're doing, and at every step of your journey we want to be with you. How can we show up for you? How can we support you? So yeah, that's how it is.
If I'm hearing you correctly, Monet, you're saying that, despite the music that you're putting out there, with which people clearly enjoy, it is still quite a challenge. One still has to fight for that visibility and to be part of some of the big projects that, of course, not only bring more of the support for you as an artist, but of course lends itself to also bringing in more followers, right? The two almost work hand in hand.
Yes, absolutely. So, but then it becomes tricky when, how do I put this? I don't know. I hope it doesn't sound like I'm digressing, but it becomes difficult when, say, Monet wants to take a break for a year, to really just maybe live and think, or maybe I've become a new parent and I want to focus on that for a year or two. I find that our industry sometimes can be really difficult to sort of say, you are the same person who was doing this 2 years ago, and you're the same person whom, if we put on stage 2 years later, the audiences will still experience the same feeling. So sometimes you might have to just keep chasing your tail and wanting to stay up. Between making music and growing an audience, those are two separate jobs that are both difficult in their own right. Yeah, I don't know how to best explain it.
What are people at home saying about your music? I know that from the time that you sort of released your first single, you've been very clear about owning your identity and singing in Tshivenda as well. How have you found that audiences, particularly back home, respond to that? Have they been supporting what you're doing?
Interestingly enough, for the longest time, there wasn't much visibility. I didn't have much visibility back home, especially to the audiences that are based in Venda. I think the majority of the Bavenda people who were listening to my music were the people in the city, also because it's easier again to put together shows here in the city. But recently, I decided to be a little bit more intentional with my social media, specifically TikTok, and I said I'm only going to speak in Tshivenda, and I could see like the following growing, especially from back home, and there's been this amazing love. And now that's happened, now everyone is like, when are you doing shows in Venda? When are you doing shows in Venda? And also the validation from back home is different in that people really give you feedback on what you are doing, whereas people who might not necessarily understand the language or have the context give you feedback on what they felt. So it's been very beautiful experiencing these new feelings of, oh, so you really fully understand the use of language in this song. Wow, okay, I feel seen. I really feel seen as a writer, not only as a musician who sings, but also as a writer. I feel like I'm seen in that regard. And just also like looking at those who are purely depending on feeling and those who have the full understanding, who also understand the references. Maybe in one bridge I use an old folklore or lullaby, and they're like, oh, I know that from my childhood. So it's been really beautiful, but I will say it's a new thing.
Yeah, because I think, at least part of what I've noticed is that audiences in Venda prefer more upbeat music. You're not going to be driving down the road and hearing ballads playing,
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. Yes. I think it's more. I think it spans throughout the province, but I'm learning also that the people are becoming more open to ballads. I mean, I think the one person who's an artist from back home who's been really great at crossing over in terms of whether he's rapping or whether he's putting out a ballad, and he's heavily celebrated. It's Una Rams, who's also a friend, and it's so beautiful to watch that. and I'm also seeing now how people read it. I think as a public, because in Limpopo we like to play our music out loud. I think publicly or outside, when people maybe are blasting their music out driving, they will play. We will all be playing Makadzi, we will all be playing King Monata and all the other Limpopo people that we love. But I think in the comfort of their homes or in more relaxed spaces, I think that's where they've been playing Monet and the ballads that Ona Rams makes, etc. Yeah.
Monet is our Friday wind down guest. We're going to talk about the upcoming EP that he's set to release soon. Before we do that, though,
today actually.
Okay, is it being released today? Oh, this
Yes,
was not
after that, yes.
confirmed to us. We're thinking that it's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Okay, wonderful.
No, it's today.
Wonderful. We'll talk about it on the other side of this break.
Mzansi, it's raining jackpots this March. A storm of cash is coming your way with 53 million rand in total guaranteed Powerball and Daily Lotto jackpots this Friday. Don't miss out. Play Powerball for a guaranteed 52 million rand and Daily Lotto for a guaranteed 1 million rand jackpot. Buy your tickets now in store on nationallottery.co.za, the mobile app, cell phone banking, or simply dial *120 *7529# for USSD. Panda, Pusha, play. Players must be 18 years old to play responsibly. eTuba is a proud operator of the National Lottery.
Celebrating our music heritage right here on the Friday Wind Down.
We are continuing our Friday wind down with Monet, absolutely enjoying his music. So Monet, then, today is the big day. Like I said before into break, we thought that was going to happen in the next couple of weeks, but you're releasing your EP. Tell us more about this project.
Yeah, so I just released my EP today. It's titled There's a Burning Sensation Where My Heart Used to Be. And I think it's exactly that, heavy sigh. It's a project mostly centered around self-forgiveness, and not necessarily because one has done something wrong, but because it's important for us to check in with ourselves and do the work of forgiving ourselves, just as human beings who are here without any prior experience, without knowing how we ended up here, and without knowing where we go when we leave. So this was mostly inspired by, my late friend that I spoke about. And sometimes when people pass, we ask ourselves if we could have been better friends, if we could have been better lovers, if we could have spent more time together. And, I couldn't help but think, me and this person had a full life. And I think by the time they left, there was nothing left unsaid and nothing left undone. But that doesn't mean to say that it's okay for them to go. It means, you still yearn for more. We could have spent more time together. We could have gone to more places together. But at the core of it all, it's saying, I forgive myself for not knowing, even when I'm doing my best, sometimes I mess up, and I forgive myself for that. So it's like this one big letter to myself. And it's the first time I really sort of make the work about me, because my first project was about my grandmother. My second project was about people I really had an interest in and liked. And this particular project is mostly just about me and my feelings and just being vulnerable and sharing. Like the song we played last, it opens with saying, I'm sorry for letting you down. And I'm saying that to myself. And that's a collaboration with Tambo Zide. And there's a song on there which was a single to the EP called Horu Rufuno. It's about, this love is going to kill me. And it's about sometimes being in a space where you're like, I really care for this person, but I feel like this is going to be the end of me. But still staying, because you're like, well, I'm going to honor these feelings. And eventually when you get hurt, you have to then make room to forgive yourself. Not for being there, but for maybe giving into your urges and wanting to be there and not knowing that it would hurt like that. So that's what the project is about.
Monet, it sounds like this loss has had such a profound impact on you. I mean, just the idea of a burn where your heart used to be.
Yes.
So people, are we going to be crying the entire EP? We're just like, you are telling us basically. You're like,
yes,
no, you're
going to
sit down, pull up the tissue, and
Yeah.
let's have a DMC.
I highly recommend that. I highly recommend that, people take their journals and their pens and sit down and listen and just, yeah, and just forgive themselves. It sounds like a simple act. It also sometimes sounds simpler to forgive others, but yeah, let's forgive ourselves.
Let's talk about then any upcoming shows that you may have and just what it is that you want to leave our audience with before we wrap things up.
Exciting. I've played the majority of the shows in the past few weeks, with the last show that I played having been on the Sunday, the 9th, with Ruene Chivare, who's also a vendor artist who's one of my biggest inspirations. But I'm playing on the 27th of March with I have a duo show with Dr. Nduduzo Makatini. He's been doing a series of shows which are called the ongoing rehearsals, and his philosophy that like it's all just a rehearsal. You can't perfect a performance. We're all just rehearsing. And then on the 29th of March, I'm playing Jazz in the Lights at Zoo Lake, which is a family-friendly festival. I'm playing with my other band, Ditsumo, which is a trio. It's myself, Kekelingo from the Muffins, and Leo Mile from Lesotho, for those who know her. And yeah, those are the shows that I'm aware of. Yeah, for the quarter, we're just wrapping up the first quarter shows.
Wonderful. Monet, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. We wish you all of the best with the EP, and as you sing, as you perform, may it also bring all of the healing that you need.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure being here.
And that is where we wrap things up on the Friday Wind Down. On the talking point for this week, we continue to lead conversations that move us. Bright and early next week, Monday from 9 to midday. Stay tuned to SAFM.
You taught me how to wait, but taught yourself to love another. So where do I go? What do I do? Do I stay or walk away? Do I wait for you? Your heart was far too eager, but I found grass that's greener, and loving you won't do me no good, won't do you no good, won't do me no. Indlela wenza ngayo khombisa uthando lwalungekho kwaseqaleni. Ngokuya ngawe awenza ngalutho kwaseqaleni. So where do I go? What do I do?
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide.
It's 12 o'clock on Friday, the 14th of March. A very warm welcome to Updated Noon here on SAFM. Leading the conversation, I'm John Gericke, in for Sakina Kamwendo, who's out today. Led by the amazing team, Masande Ntama, Maleboheng Golwako, and Sitakazelo Dlamini. Technical producer today is Mark Prella, and coming up in this hour.
If all of us here as honorable members, we care about these poor communities whose services have been eroded, it's going to be important that irrespective of where we stand on a number of things, we keep our eyes on the ball.
That's the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, who's calling for calm heads as he appears before Parliament's Parliament's committees on finance. Also coming up,
although government is preaching for people, especially in low-lying areas, to seek higher ground, to seek shelter, they don't have that shelter. As in this area, they don't even have a community hall. They have to go and knock at church doors.
we're going to go to KwaZulu-Natal, where heavy rains continue to batter the province, with reports of at least one person that has died overnight. Share your views with us on 41391. That's R1.50 in SMS. You can give us a call on 086 000 2032, and our WhatsApp voice note number 082 692 3909. You can also find us on Twitter or Facebook. We're at SABC News_radio. You can reach us on X using the hashtag #UpdatedNoon. That and plenty more coming up in today's edition of Updated Noon. Ondela Mbana has your news.
Thank you, John. Top stories. 3 SASSA officials arrested in Johannesburg and shopping malls in Durban affected by heavy rains. For SAFM News, I am Ondela Mbana, and a very good day. 3 SASSA officials have been arrested at the Social Security Agency offices in Johannesburg. They are allegedly linked to the more than 260 million rand stolen from beneficiaries through ghost SASSA cards. SASSA spokesperson Andile Chona says more arrests are expected.
The South African Social Security Agency, SASSA, can confirm that 3 officials were arrested on Friday, the 14th of March 2025. SASSA is working closely with SAPS, and more arrests are expected to be made. This is part of ongoing work by the agency to clamp down on fraud and corruption activities in all its offices across the country.
Malls in the west of Durban have also borne the brunt of the destructive overnight rains. At least one person is confirmed to have died when her car washed away in Pinetown last night. The level 6 warning for the province's coastal towns remains relevant for today, with more rains expected. Larissa Govender is a clothing store owner at the Kloof Village Mall. She explains the damage her store has sustained.
There is so much of damage that has happened. And we've going to have a loss of trade today because we are unable to trade today. Thankfully, we are trying to extract the water from the store at the moment. However, there's a lot of damage that has happened. My Digitag system is not functioning. After we drain out all the water, we can assess the damage further.
Candace Smith-Mayo is with Centre Management at the Kloof Village Mall. She says a handful of shops suffered water damage.
Look, the whole lower ground obviously flooded last night. There's probably about 4 or 5 that are severely flooded, but not structurally, nothing more than cosmetic and nothing that can't be resolved and fixed. I believe that it was over 200 mils of rain that fell last night in Kloof. It was just Mother Nature took its course last night.
The woman currently testifying in the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping trial in the High Court sitting at Saldanha on the Cape West Coast has told the court that she overheard Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, telling her boyfriend that someone wants Jocelyn. Kelly's friend, Laurentia Lombard, who was accused number 4 in the matter, has now turned state witness, says a few moments later she saw Smith leaving the house with Jocelyn to meet up with a woman in a white car not far from where she stays. Lombard says the woman, whom she has described as having features of a sangoma, handed something to Kelly, which she put in her pants. Kelly Smith, her boyfriend, Jacqueline Polis, and Stefano van Rijn are on trial on charges of kidnapping and trafficking in relation to the disappearance of Jocelyn in February last year. An investigation has uncovered details of a mass killing allegedly carried out by rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo last month. According to testimony, between 17 and 22 people were killed by members of the M23 rebels in the eastern city of Goma. Recapping the top story, 3 SASSA officials have been arrested at the Social Security Agency offices in Johannesburg. They are allegedly linked to the more than 260 million rand stolen from beneficiaries through ghost SASSA cards. I am Mondelambana for SFM News Headlines at 12:30.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Good afternoon to you, John in for Sakina today. Good to be along with you. Update at noon it is. Coming up in the next hour or so, there could possibly be big changes happening in Ukraine. That's after Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly almost accepted a ceasefire in Ukraine. It's sort of accepted on principle. He was looking for some clarifications, and a couple of analysts saying he's just stalling for time. It's a yes, but. So we'll see if we can get an update on that. More locally, there has been a briefing by senior members of the Zulu family. They're speaking out over ongoing battles of power within the royal family in the Zulu family. So we'll get an update on that. And then, as always, an update on the Jocelyn Smith kidnapping trial. And also, it's kind of breaking news at the moment. Multiple murderer Enoch Ndo will be sentenced at the Tuyanda High Court. He's been found guilty of shooting, killing 7 of his family members over Christmas Day in 2021. We hope to get an update on that as well. That's some breaking news. That sentencing has just happened. First, let's go to KwaZulu-Natal, find out what's happening in that province.
Update at noon, midday to 1 p.m.
Mother Nature taking its toll. 1 person died in overnight rains across the eThekwini municipality and surrounding areas. The body of a woman has been recovered after her vehicle was swept off a bridge on Sania Road in Pinetown in the west of Durban last night. Level 6 warnings were issued by the South African Weather Service for widespread showers and disruptive rains across KwaZulu-Natal. We hope to get a little bit more on that later on in the show. We're going to speak to our reporter, and we're going to talk to Cogta in KwaZulu-Natal, find out what they are going to be doing. Meanwhile, let's talk about the budget. This isn't going away. Finance Minister Edon Gonongwana has called for calm heads as reactions to his budget speech continue to pour in. The minister is currently appearing before Parliament's Committees on Finance following his budget speech on Wednesday. Follows the announcement that government proposes a VAT increase of 1 percentage point over a 2-year period. Gonongwana says such measures are intended at tackling financial challenges in health, education, transport, and the military, amongst others.
Just between March and December last year, we lost roughly about 9,000 professionals, and those professional positions could not be filled. We're going to another year where we should be employing more professionals. What this budget is attempting is to grapple with that question. You